What if the small, ordinary penny sitting in your pocket right now could quietly be worth far more than 1 cent? Not because it looks special at first glance, but because of where and when it was made. Today, we're uncovering the story of the 1964 D-Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin that millions of people have handled, yet very few truly understand. The 1964 D. Lincoln penny is part of one of the most familiar coin series in American history. It features the profile of Abraham Lincoln on the front, a design first introduced in 1909 to honor his 100th birthday. On the back, you'll find the classic wheat ears design if it were older, but by 1964, the reverse had already changed to the Lincoln Memorial, showing a detailed image of the building in Washington, D.C.At first glance. Nothing about the 1964 D penny seems extraordinary. It looks like countless other pennies. But when you take a closer look, especially at that small D mint mark under the year, you begin to uncover a deeper story tied to American history, economics, and even a bit of mystery. To understand this coin, we have to go back to the early 1960s. The United States was facing a coin shortage. People were hoarding coins, partly because of rising silver prices and partly out of fear that coins would soon be made with cheaper materials. The government needed to produce more coins quickly, and the Denver Mint stepped up in a big way. The D Mint mark on your penny tells you it was struck at the Denver Mint. In 1964, the Denver Mint produced over 3.7 billion Lincoln pennies. That's an enormous number, making this coin seem extremely common. And in many ways, it is. But here's where things get interesting. Even among billions of coins, certain variations, conditions, and rare errors can turn a simple penny into something collectors are willing to pay serious money for. Let's talk about what makes this coin unique. The 1964 D penny is made primarily of copper, about 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. This gives it that classic reddish-brown color, although over time, many coins darken or develop a patina. The weight is about 3.11 grams, and the diameter is 19 millimeters. The design is simple but iconic. On the front, Abraham Lincoln's profile faces right, with the words "In God We Trust" above, Liberty to the left, and the date with the D Mint mark to the right. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial stands proudly, and if you look closely, you can even see a tiny image of Lincoln's statue inside the memorial. It's one of the few coins in the world that shows the same person on both sides. Now, here's where collectors start to pay attention. Not all 1964 D pennies are equal. The majority are worth only a few cents above face value, especially if they've been heavily circulated. But coins in uncirculated condition, meaning they were never really used in everyday transactions, can be worth significantly more. Even more valuable are coins with errors. Minting errors happen when something goes slightly wrong during production, and these mistakes can create unique coins. For the 1964 D penny, collectors look for errors like double die strikes, where the design appears slightly doubled, or off-center strikes, where the coin design isn't perfectly aligned. Another sought-after variety is the repunched mint mark. This happens when the D mint mark was stamped more than once, slightly misaligned, creating a shadow-like effect. These small details can dramatically increase a coin's value because they are much rarer than standard coins. So how much are we really talking about? In average circulated condition, a 1964 D penny might be worth anywhere from 2 to 10 cents. Not very exciting, but in brilliant uncirculated condition, especially with a strong red color, values can jump to several dollars, sometimes even reaching $20 or $30 depending on quality. Now let's step into more serious collector territory. High-grade coins that have been professionally graded can sell for hundreds of dollars. For example, a 1964 D penny graded MS-67, which means it is in near-perfect condition, has sold for over $1,000 at auction. That's a huge leap. From 1-cent error coins can go even higher. A well-defined double die or a strong repunched mint mark can push values into the hundreds, depending on rarity and demand. These are the coins that collectors actively search for, often going through rolls of pennies hoping to find that one special piece. But with value comes risk, especially the risk of counterfeits or misidentified coins. So how can you tell if your 1964 D penny is real and possibly valuable? First, check the mint mark. It should be a small D located just below the date. It must look natural, not glued on or altered. Counterfeit coins sometimes have fake mint marks added to increase value. so pay close attention to the texture and alignment. Second, examine the color. Original copper pennies often have a bright red tone if they are uncirculated. Over time, they turn brown. Coins described as red are usually more valuable, but the color should look natural, not artificially enhanced. Third, look closely for errors. Use a magnifying glass if you can. Check the letters and numbers for doubling, especially around the date and the word Liberty. Also, inspect the mint mark for signs of repunching. Fourth, consider the weight. A genuine 1964 D penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. If it's significantly lighter or heavier, that could be a sign of a fake or a damaged coin. And finally, if you think you have something special, consider getting it professionally graded. Services like PCGS or NGC can authenticate and grade your coin, giving you a clear idea of its value. Now here's something many people don't realize. The year 1964 was one of the last years before major changes in U.S. coin composition. While pennies remained copper-based for a while longer, other coins like dimes and quarters were about to lose their silver content. This makes 1964 a kind of turning point in American coinage history, adding a bit of historical importance to coins from that year. There's also a psychological factor. Because so many 1964 pennies were made, people often overlook them. They assume they're too common to be valuable. But that's exactly why hidden gems can still be found. Not every coin was preserved carefully. Finding one in exceptional condition today is much harder than it seems. Collectors love the 1964 D penny for several reasons. It's accessible, meaning almost anyone can find one. It's affordable, making it a great entry point for beginners. And it has just enough variation and mystery to keep experienced collectors interested. There's also something deeply satisfying about searching through everyday coins and discovering something valuable. It turns an ordinary moment into a small treasure hunt. And with the 1964 D penny, that possibility is always there. Another fun detail is how these coins connect generations. Many people remember using them in daily life, long before digital payments and credit cards became dominant. Holding a 1964 penny is like holding a small piece of the past, a reminder of a different era in American history. And here's a surprising thought. Billions of these coins were made, but many have been lost, damaged, or melted down over the years. The number of high-quality examples continues to shrink, which can slowly increase their value over time. So the next time you come across a penny, especially one dated 1964 with a small D mint mark, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Check the details. Because while most may be ordinary, a few could be worth far more than you expect. In the world of coin collecting, value often hides in plain sight. And sometimes, the difference between a 1-cent coin and a $100 coin comes down to a tiny detail that most people never notice. That's what makes the 1964 D Lincoln penny so fascinating. It's not just a coin. It's a story of history, production, human error, and the thrill of discovery. And who knows? The next valuable coin might already be in your pocket, waiting for you to notice it. Imagine holding a penny that looks almost perfect, so sharp and clean that it feels different from every other coin in your pocket. Now imagine that this tiny piece of copper could be worth far more than 1 cent, maybe even hundreds, or in rare cases, thousands of dollars. That's the quiet mystery behind the 1971 S Lincoln penny. At first glance, the 1971 S mint mark Lincoln penny doesn't seem extraordinary. It's a 1-cent coin featuring the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. Millions of people have seen coins like this. Many have even spent them without a second thought. But what most people don't realize is that some of these pennies were never meant for everyday use. And that's where the story begins. The S mint mark tells us this coin was struck at the San Francisco Mint. By 1971, San Francisco had shifted its focus away from producing regular circulation coins and instead specialized in proof coins. These were coins made specifically for collectors, not for spending. They were carefully struck using polished dies and specially prepared planchets, resulting in coins with mirror-like surfaces and incredibly sharp details. In 1971, the United States Mint produced proof sets for collectors, and inside those sets was the 1971 S Lincoln penny. These coins were never intended to end up in your pocket change. They were meant to be preserved, admired, and collected. And yet, over time, many of them were removed from their original sets, handled, or even accidentally spent, which makes the surviving high-quality examples more valuable today. What makes the 1971's Lincoln penny truly special is its appearance. If you look closely at a genuine proof version, you'll notice a deep, reflective background that almost looks like a mirror. Lincoln's portrait appears frosted, creating a striking contrast against the shiny field. This is known as a cameo or deep cameo effect, and it's one of the most desirable features for collectors. The coin itself is made primarily of copper, with a small percentage of tin and zinc, giving it that classic reddish-brown color. But over time, exposure to air and handling can change its tone. Collectors often categorize these coins as red, red-brown, or brown depending on their color. The brightest red coins, especially in near-perfect condition, are the most valuable. Now here's where things get interesting. Not all 1971's pennies are the same. Some were struck with incredible precision, while others show small imperfections or variations. One of the most talked about features among collectors is the quality of the strike. Because proof coins were struck multiple times to bring out detail, they often have sharper features than regular coins. But occasionally, something went slightly wrong during production, and those small differences can turn an ordinary proof coin into a highly collectible piece. For example, collectors look for strong cameo contrast. A deep cameo 1971's penny, where the frosted design stands out boldly against a mirror-like background, can be significantly more valuable than a standard proof. These coins are not extremely common, even among proof sets, and finding one in perfect condition is a challenge. There are also minor die variations and subtle doubling effects that some collectors search for. While the 1971's penny is not famous for dramatic error varieties like some other years, even slight doubling in the lettering or date can increase interest and value. So why is this penny considered valuable? The answer lies in condition, rarity within condition, and demand. While millions of 1971's proof pennies were made, far fewer have survived in flawless condition. Coins are graded on a scale, and the highest grades, such as PR69 or PR70, represent coins that are nearly perfect or completely perfect under magnification. A typical 1971's proof penny in average condition might be worth only a few dollars. But a high-grade example with a deep cameo finish can sell for much more. In some cases, coins graded PR69 deep cameo have sold for $20 to $50 or more, depending on market demand. And if you happen to find a perfect PR70 deep cameo coin, the value can jump into the hundreds of dollars. There have even been auction results where top-quality examples fetched impressive prices, simply because collectors are always chasing perfection. The difference between a $5 coin and a $200 coin can come down to tiny details that are almost invisible to the untrained eye. But how can you tell if you have a real 1971's proof penny, or if it's just a regular coin? The first thing to check is the mint mark. Look just below the date on the front of the coin. You should see a small S. But that alone is not enough, because some regular circulation coins from San Francisco also carry the S mint mark. The real clue is in the finish. A genuine proof coin will have a mirror-like surface. If you can see your reflection in the coin, that's a good sign. The details should be sharp and crisp, especially in Lincoln's hair and the lettering. The edges will also appear more defined compared to regular coins. Another important tip is to look at the condition. Proof coins were made for collectors, so they typically show fewer signs of wear. If your coin looks dull, heavily scratched, or worn down, it's likely not a proof, or it has been significantly damaged over time. To be absolutely certain, many collectors turn to professional grading services. These organizations examine coins under magnification and assign a grade based on condition and quality. Having a coin professionally graded can increase its value and make it easier to sell. Here's a fun detail that surprises many people. Even though proof coins were never meant for circulation, some of them did end up being spent. Over the decades, people broke open proof sets, lost coins, or simply didn't realize what they had. That means it's still possible, though rare, to find a 1971's proof penny in everyday change. Another interesting fact is that the San Francisco Mint's proof coins from this era are often considered some of the most beautiful coins ever produced by the United States Mint. The level of detail and craftsmanship is something that modern collectors still admire today. Collectors also love the 1971 penny because it represents a moment in history when coin production was changing. The early 1970s were a time of transition for the U.S. Mint, with new technologies and methods being introduced. The proof coins from this period capture that evolution, blending traditional craftsmanship with modern techniques. There's also a sense of accessibility that makes this coin appealing. Unlike some rare coins that cost thousands of dollars just to get started, the 1971 penny allows beginners to enter the world of coin collecting without a huge investment. At the same time, it offers enough variety and challenge to keep experienced collectors interested. And perhaps most importantly, it reminds people that value can be hidden in plain sight. A coin that looks simple and ordinary can carry a story, a history, and even significant worth if you know what to look for. So the next time you come across an old coin collection, or even a small box of loose change, take a closer look. That shiny penny with the tiny S mint mark might not just be another coin. Could be a carefully crafted piece of history, waiting to be rediscovered. Because sometimes, the most valuable treasures aren't the ones that stand out the most. They're the ones that quietly wait to be noticed. What if the penny sitting quietly in your pocket right now is hiding a story that most people never notice, and in rare cases, could be worth far more than 1 cent? Today, we're looking at a coin that millions of people have handled without a second thought, yet collectors continue to search for it every single day. The 1979 D Lincoln Penny. At first glance, the 1979 D Lincoln Penny looks completely ordinary. It's a small copper-colored coin featuring Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. You've probably seen it, maybe even spent it without thinking twice. But like many coins from this era, there's more beneath the surface than meets the eye. The D Mint mark on this penny tells us it was produced at the Denver Mint, one of the major coin-producing facilities in the United States. In 1979, the U.S. Mint was producing billions of pennies every year. Inflation was rising, production demands were high, and pennies were still widely used in everyday transactions. The Denver Mint alone struck over 4 billion pennies that year, making the 1979 D one of the most common coins ever made. So you might be wondering, if there are billions of them, how could this coin possibly be interesting, let alone valuable? To understand that, we need to go back a bit further. The Lincoln penny design was first introduced in 1909 to celebrate the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln. It was the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure. By 1979, this design had already been in circulation for 70 years, making it one of the longest-running coin designs in American history. The front of the coin, known as the obverse, shows Lincoln's profile, designed by Victor David Brenner. If you look closely near Lincoln's shoulder, you'll see the small initials VDB, a detail that once caused controversy when the coin was first released. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial stands tall, and if your eyes are sharp enough, you can even spot a tiny image of Lincoln seated inside the building. Now let's talk about what makes the 1979 D penny special. While most of these coins are only worth their face value, certain factors can make specific examples much more desirable to collectors. One of the most important factors is condition. Coins that were never circulated, meaning they were never used in daily transactions, can still have their original shine and sharp details. These are known as uncirculated coins. A 1979 D penny in average condition might be worth just 1 cent, but in pristine condition it can be worth several dollars, sometimes even more depending on grading. But condition is only part of the story. The real excitement begins when we talk about errors. Mint errors are like hidden secrets in the world of coins. They happen when something goes slightly wrong during the production process. And even though the U.S. Mint has strict quality control with billions of coins being made, mistakes are bound to slip through. For the 1979 D penny, collectors often look for errors like double die strikes, where the design appears slightly doubled due to a misalignment during minting. There are also off-center strikes, where the coin design is not properly aligned, leaving part of the blank surface visible. Another possibility is a clipped planchet, where a portion of the coin is missing due to a cutting error before it was struck. These errors can dramatically increase the value of a coin. A normal 1979 D penny might not attract attention, but an error coin from the same year could sell for tens or even hundreds of dollars depending on the rarity and visibility of the mistake. There are also subtle variations that experienced collectors search for. Differences in luster, strike quality, and even the exact placement of the mint mark can make certain coins stand out. These details might seem small, but in the world of coin collecting, they can make all the difference. Now let's talk about real value. In most cases, a circulated 1979 D penny is still just worth 1 cent. However, uncirculated examples in high grades have been sold for anywhere between a few dollars to around $20 or more. Coins graded at the highest levels, often labeled as MS-65 or above, are especially desirable. Error coins, on the other hand, can go much higher. Some have sold for $50, $100, or even several $100s depending on the uniqueness of the error. While these are not everyday finds, they are real, and they keep collectors searching through rolls of pennies and old coin jars. So how can you tell if you have a valuable 1979 D penny? First, look for the mint mark. Under the date, you should see a small D, indicating it was minted in Denver. Next, examine the coin's condition. Is it shiny? Are the details sharp? Or is it worn down and dull from years of use? Then, check for anything unusual. Look closely at the lettering and numbers. Do they appear doubled? Is the design off-center? Is there anything that looks different from a typical penny? Even small irregularities can be important. It's also a good idea to use a magnifying glass or a coin loupe. Many valuable details are too small to see with the naked eye. And if you think you've found something special, you can have your coin professionally graded by a coin grading service. This can confirm its authenticity and condition, and often increases its value in the eyes of collectors. Now here's something surprising. Even though the 1979 D penny is extremely common, it plays an important role in coin collecting. It represents a time when pennies were still made primarily of copper. Just a few years later, in 1982, the U.S. Mint changed the composition of the penny to mostly zinc with a thin copper coating. This makes pre-1982 pennies, including the 1979 D, more interesting to collectors who focus on metal content and historical changes. Another fun fact is that many people unknowingly collect these coins without realizing it. Old jars, piggy banks, and forgotten drawers often contain pennies from the 1970s. And while most are ordinary, every now and then, someone discovers a coin that stands out. Collectors love the 1979 D penny not because it is rare in the traditional sense, but because it offers opportunity. It's accessible, affordable, and full of potential. It invites beginners into the hobby while still giving experienced collectors something to search for. There's also a certain thrill in the hunt. The idea that a coin so small and so common could hold hidden value keeps people coming back. It turns everyday change into something exciting, something worth examining closely. And that's really what coin collecting is all about. It's not just about money. It's about history, discovery, and the stories behind these tiny pieces of metal that pass through our hands every day. So the next time you come across a penny, especially a 1979 D, don't ignore it. Take a closer look. Turn it over. Study the details. Because while most will be ordinary, one might just surprise you. And who knows? The next valuable coin might already be in your pocket, waiting for you to notice it. What if the small, ordinary penny sitting in your pocket right now is quietly worth far more than 1 cent, maybe even hundreds or thousands of dollars? Most people would never look twice at a 1985 penny. But hidden within this common coin is a story that collectors pay very close attention to. Today, we're exploring the 1985 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin that millions of Americans have handled, spent, or ignored. At first glance, it looks like any other copper-colored coin. But when you take a closer look, you start to notice something fascinating. Small details, tiny imperfections, and even its history can turn this everyday penny into something surprisingly valuable. The 1985 D Lincoln penny was struck in Denver, which is what the small D mint mark under the date represents. This coin is part of the Lincoln Cent series that began in 1909, honoring President Abraham Lincoln. By 1985, the United States Mint had already been producing pennies for over a century, and these coins had become a familiar part of daily life. But something important had changed just a few years before 1985. In 1982, the composition of the Lincoln penny was altered due to rising copper prices. Before that, pennies were made mostly of copper. After 1982, they were made from a zinc core coated with a thin layer of copper. That means the 1985 D penny is not solid copper like older coins. even though it looks similar. It's lighter, and its internal composition is very different. Now, why does this matter? Because collectors often pay close attention to transitional periods like this. When materials change, mistakes can happen. And mistakes in coin production are exactly what can turn an ordinary coin into a rare find. Let's talk about the design. On the front or obverse, you'll see Abraham Lincoln's profile facing right. This design was created by Victor David Brenner and has remained one of the most recognizable coin designs in American history. Above Lincoln's head is the word Liberty, and in front of him is the date, 1985, along with the D mint mark just below it. The phrase "In God We Trust" is curved along the top. On the back, or reverse, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial, which was used on pennies from 1959 to 2008. If you look very closely, you can even spot a tiny image of Lincoln sitting inside the memorial. Above the building are the words United States of America, and below it is 1 cent. The motto E pluribus unum appears above the memorial. At this point, you might be thinking, this sounds like a very common coin. And you're right. The U.S. Mint produced over 5.6 billion 1985 D pennies. That's billions with a B. So how could something made in such massive numbers ever be valuable? The answer lies in condition and errors. Most 1985 D pennies have been circulated. They've been used in transactions, dropped on the ground, stored in jars, and exposed to wear and tear. Over time, this damage reduces their value. But if you find one in near-perfect condition, something collectors call uncirculated or mint state, its value can increase dramatically. Coins are graded on a scale, and the highest quality coins can sell for much more than face value. A 1985 D penny in average condition might only be worth 1 or 2 cents. But in high grades, especially those rated MS 65 or higher, the value can rise to several dollars. And in extremely rare cases, coins graded at the very top of the scale, like MS 67 or MS 68, have sold for hundreds of dollars. But condition alone isn't the only factor. Errors are where things get truly exciting. During the minting process, coins go through high-speed machines that strike designs onto blank metal discs. Sometimes, these machines don't work perfectly. When that happens, errors occur. And collectors love errors. One of the most well-known types of errors is the double die error. This happens when the coin's design is stamped more than once in slightly different positions, creating a doubling effect. On a 1985 D penny, this might show up in the lettering or numbers. It can be subtle, but under magnification it becomes clear. Another type of error is an off-center strike. This occurs when the coin isn't properly aligned during the minting process, causing part of the design to be missing or shifted. Depending on how dramatic the error is, these coins can be worth significantly more than normal ones. There are also die cracks, where the metal die used to strike the coin develops small cracks. These cracks transfer onto the coin as raised lines, creating unique patterns. While some cracks are minor, others are large and dramatic, making the coin more desirable to collectors. Perhaps one of the most interesting possibilities involves transitional errors. Although 1985 pennies were supposed to be made with a zinc core, there have been rare cases in U.S. coin history where older metal compositions were accidentally used. If a 1985 penny were ever found struck on a leftover copper planchet from before 1982, it could be extremely valuable. While such examples are incredibly rare and often debated, the possibility alone keeps collectors searching. Let's talk about real-world value. In most cases, a circulated 1985 D penny is worth its face value. But high-grade examples have sold for $10, $20, or even more. Some top-quality coins, especially those certified by professional grading services, have reached prices in the hundreds. Error coins, depending on the type and visibility of the error, can range anywhere from $50 to several $100s or more. So how do you know if your 1985 D penny is worth anything? Start by checking the condition. Look at the surface of the coin. Is it shiny with sharp details? Or is it worn with scratches and dullness? The better the condition, the higher the potential value. Next, look for errors. Use a magnifying glass if you can. Check the lettering, the date, and the edges of the design. Look for doubling, misalignment, or unusual marks that don't look like normal wear. Weight can also be a clue. A standard 1985 zinc penny weighs about 2.5 grams. If your coin weighs closer to 3.1 grams, which is the weight of older copper pennies, it might be something unusual and worth further investigation. Another important step is authentication. If you believe you've found a rare or valuable coin, consider having it evaluated by a professional grading service. These experts can confirm whether your coin is genuine and assign it a grade, which can significantly impact its market value. Now let's explore a few fun facts about the 1985 D penny. Did you know that pennies are the most commonly produced coin in the United States? Every year, billions are made, yet only a tiny fraction ever become collectible. Or that many people unknowingly spend valuable coins every day. Rare pennies often go unnoticed because they look so similar to ordinary ones. And here's something surprising. Even though pennies are worth just 1 cent, it actually costs more than 1 cent to produce them. This has led to ongoing debates about whether the US should continue making pennies at all. If that ever changes, coins like the 1985 D penny could gain even more attention from collectors. So why do collectors love this coin? It's not just about the money. It's about the thrill of discovery. The idea that something so small and ordinary could hold hidden value is incredibly exciting. The 1985 D penny represents a moment in US history, a shift in materials, and a reminder that even everyday objects can have deeper stories. For collectors, each coin is like a time capsule. It carries the marks of its journey, from the moment it was struck to the hands it has passed through over the years. And for beginners, the 1985 D penny is an accessible starting point. It's easy to find, affordable, and full of potential. You don't need to be an expert to start looking. All you need is curiosity and a closer look at the coins you already have. So the next time you see a penny, don't ignore it. Take a moment to examine it. Check the date. Look for that small D mint mark. And ask yourself, could this be more than just spare change? Because sometimes, the smallest discoveries lead to the biggest surprises. And who knows? The next valuable coin might already be in your pocket, waiting to be noticed. What if the small, ordinary penny sitting in your pocket right now could be hiding a story far more interesting than you ever imagined? And in some cases, even worth far more than 1 cent. Today, we're taking a closer look at the 1988 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that millions of people have seen, but very few truly understand. At first glance, it looks completely normal. It's just another copper-colored coin with Abraham Lincoln's face on the front. But once you start digging deeper, you begin to uncover details that make this coin far more fascinating than it seems. The 1988 Lincoln penny is part of a long-running series that began in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln. By 1988, the coin had already been in circulation for nearly 8 decades, making it one of the most recognizable coins in American history. These pennies were produced in multiple locations, including Philadelphia and Denver. When a penny has no mint mark, it means it was made in Philadelphia, which traditionally did not include a mint mark on pennies until later years. In 1988, billions of pennies were struck. The United States Mint was producing coins at a massive scale to keep up with demand. Because of this, many people assume that any penny from that year must be extremely common and not worth much. And in most cases, that assumption is correct. But as with many things in the world of coin collecting, the real story is hidden in the details. To understand why the 1988 no mint mark penny matters, you have to look at how it was made. By this time, the composition of the penny had already changed from solid copper to a zinc core with a thin copper coating. This change happened in 1982 due to rising copper prices. So your 1988 penny is actually mostly zinc on the inside, even though it looks like copper on the outside. The design of the coin remained classic and familiar. On the front, you see Abraham Lincoln's profile, a design created by Victor David Brenner. Above his head is the word Liberty, and in front of him is the year, 1988. Since this version has no mint mark, there's no letter under the date. On the back, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, which was introduced in 1959 to mark Lincoln's 150th birthday. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny depiction of Lincoln's statue inside the memorial. Now here's where things start to get interesting. While most 1988 no mint mark pennies are common, certain variations and errors can make them stand out. One of the most talked about varieties is known as the 1988 reverse of 1989 penny. This happens when a coin is struck using a reverse design that was intended for the following year. The difference is subtle, but collectors who know what to look for can spot it. The easiest way to identify this variety is by examining the lettering on the reverse, especially the letters in United States of America. On the 1989 reverse design, the lettering has a slightly different shape and spacing compared to 1988. It may sound like a small detail, but in the world of coin collecting, small details can mean big value. So why does this matter? Because coins with unusual features, especially those created by mistake, tend to be much rarer than standard coins. And rarity is one of the key factors that drives value in the collector market. Let's talk about value. A regular 1988 no-mint mark penny in circulated condition is usually worth just 1 cent. Even in uncirculated condition, it might only be worth a few cents to $1. But if you happen to find a high-grade example, especially one that has never been used and still has its original shine, the value can increase significantly. For example, a 1988 no-mint mark penny graded in near-perfect condition, such as MS65 or higher, can sell for several dollars or even more depending on demand. But the real excitement comes from error coins and rare varieties. The 1988 reverse of 1989 variety has sold for hundreds of dollars, and in some cases even more when found in excellent condition. Collectors are always searching for coins that tell a unique story. A small variation in design or a tiny minting mistake can turn an ordinary penny into something special. That's why people often go through rolls of pennies, searching carefully for anything unusual. But how can you tell if your 1988 penny is something special or just another common coin? First, check the mint mark. If there is no letter under the date, then it was minted in Philadelphia. That's your starting point. Next, examine the condition of the coin. Is it worn down, or does it still have sharp details and a bright surface? The better the condition, the higher the potential value. Then, take a closer look at the reverse design. Compare the lettering and details with known examples of the 1989 reverse. This might require a magnifying glass or even a microscope. Small differences in the shape of letters, especially the A and M in America, can be important clues. It's also important to be aware of counterfeits. While pennies are not the most commonly faked coins, rare varieties can sometimes attract attention from people trying to make a quick profit. Always be cautious if you're buying a coin that is claimed to be rare. Look for certification from reputable grading companies, which verify the authenticity and condition of coins. One of the most fascinating things about the 1988 no-mint mark penny is how easy it is to overlook. Unlike rare gold coins or silver dollars, this is a coin that many people have handled without a second thought. It might be sitting in a jar, a drawer, or even in your loose change right now. There's something exciting about the idea that a valuable coin could be hiding in plain sight. It turns an everyday object into a small treasure hunt. And that's part of what makes coin collecting so appealing. It's not just about money. It's about discovery, history, and the thrill of finding something unexpected. Here's a fun fact. The Lincoln penny was the first regular-issue U.S. coin to feature a real person. Before 1909, American coins typically featured symbolic figures like Lady Liberty. Choosing Abraham Lincoln was a major shift, and it helped set the stage for future coins that would honor historical figures. Another interesting detail is that the Lincoln Memorial design remained on the back of the penny until 2008. In 2009, the design changed to celebrate Lincoln's 200th birthday, and later it was replaced again with the Union Shield design. That means the 1988 penny is part of a long and iconic chapter in American coin history. Collectors today are drawn to coins like the 1988 no-mint mark penny because they represent a balance between accessibility and discovery. You don't need a huge budget to start looking for them. You don't need expensive equipment. All you need is curiosity and a willingness to pay attention to details. And sometimes, that's all it takes to find something special. Even if you never come across a rare variety, the process of searching can be rewarding on its own. You start to notice things you never paid attention to before. You begin to understand how coins are made, how designs change over time, and how small differences can tell a bigger story. The 1988 no-mint mark Lincoln penny may not seem extraordinary at first glance. But when you look closer, you realize it's part of a much larger story. It's a piece of history that has passed through countless hands, traveled across the country, and survived decades of circulation. And in rare cases, it carries a unique twist that sets it apart from the rest, so the next time you come across a penny, don't ignore it. Take a closer look. Check the date. Look for the mint mark. Examine the details, because you never know what you might find. That ordinary coin could be more than just spare change. Could be a small piece of history, or even a hidden gem waiting to be discovered. What if the next penny you find in your pocket looks completely ordinary, yet quietly holds a story that could make collectors stop and take a second look? Today, we're uncovering the truth behind a coin most people ignore, the 1995 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, and why this small detail can matter more than you think. The 1995 Lincoln penny is one of those coins that millions of Americans have seen, touched, and spent without a second thought. At first glance, it looks exactly like any other modern penny. It features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. But there's one detail that often confuses people and sparks curiosity. Many of these coins don't have a mint mark at all. So what does that actually mean? To understand this coin, we need to go back to how coins are made in the United States. The United States Mint produces coins at different facilities across the country, mainly in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Most coins carry a small letter called a mint mark to show where they were made. For example, a D means Denver, and an S means San Francisco. But here's where it gets interesting. For many years, coins made in Philadelphia didn't carry any mint mark at all. So when you see a 1995 penny with no mint mark, it simply means it was struck in Philadelphia. It's not a mistake. It's not an error. It's actually the standard version of the coin.in 1995. The United States was producing billions of pennies every year. These coins were still made primarily for everyday use, long before digital payments became dominant. That year, the Philadelphia Mint struck over 6.4 billion pennies without mint marks. So at first glance, this coin seems extremely common. But here's where the story takes a turn. Even though the no mint mark version itself is common, collectors don't just look at the surface. They look deeper at condition, small variations, and rare errors that can turn an ordinary coin into something much more valuable. Let's talk about the design first. The front of the coin, known as the obverse, features Lincoln's profile facing right. This design was first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of his birth. It was created by Victor David Brenner, and it became one of the longest-running coin designs in American history. On the back, the 1995 penny still features the Lincoln Memorial, a design that had been used since 1959. If you look closely, you can actually see a tiny depiction of the statue of Lincoln sitting inside the memorial. It's one of the few times in U.S. coin history where the same person appears on both sides of a coin. Now let's talk about what the coin is made of. By 1995, pennies were no longer made mostly of copper. Instead, they were composed of 97.5% zinc with a thin copper coating. This change happened in 1982 due to rising copper prices. So while the coin still looks copper-colored, its core is actually zinc. This difference matters because it affects how the coin ages. Over time, if the copper coating is damaged, the zinc underneath can corrode, leading to bubbling, discoloration, or even flaking. That's why finding a 1995 penny in perfect condition is harder than it sounds. And condition is everything in coin collecting. A worn 1995 penny with no mint mark might only be worth 1 cent. But a coin in pristine, uncirculated condition, meaning it was never used in everyday transactions, can be worth significantly more. Some high-grade examples, graded by professional services, have sold for several dollars, and in rare cases, even higher depending on quality. But the real excitement comes from errors. One of the most famous varieties associated with the 1995 penny is the double die obverse error. This happens when the coin's design is accidentally impressed twice at slightly different angles during the minting process. The result is a noticeable doubling effect, especially on the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust." These double die coins are rare compared to regular pennies, and collectors actively search for them. A genuine 1995 double die penny can sell for anywhere from $20 to over $100, depending on its condition. In top grades, some examples have reached even higher values at auction. So even within a year that produced billions of coins, a small variation can make a huge difference. Now you might be wondering, how can you tell if you have something valuable? First, look closely at the date and lettering. Use a magnifying glass if you can. On a normal coin, the letters will look sharp and clean. But on a double die coin, you'll notice a slight shadow or duplication, especially on the edges of the letters. Second, check the condition. Coins with fewer scratches, no discoloration, and strong details are always more desirable. Even without an error, a high-quality 1995 no-mint mark penny can be worth more than face value. Third, be cautious of fakes or altered coins. Some people try to create the appearance of errors by damaging coins or using tools to mimic doubling. Real double die errors happen during the minting process, not after. If the doubling looks uneven, scratched, or inconsistent, it's likely not genuine. If you think you've found something special, it's always a good idea to have it evaluated by a professional coin grading service. They can confirm authenticity and assign a grade, which helps determine its market value. Now let's explore a few surprising details about this coin. Did you know that even though billions were made, most 1995 pennies today are in poor condition? That's because pennies circulate heavily and are often neglected. People don't store them carefully, which means high-quality examples become scarcer over time. Another interesting fact is that many collectors started their journey with coins just like this one. The 1995 penny is often found in pocket change, making it accessible to beginners. It's a reminder that you don't need rare gold coins to start collecting. Sometimes, the journey begins with a single cent. There's also a psychological aspect to this coin's appeal. It represents a time when physical money was used daily, when small change still mattered, and when something as simple as a penny could carry both practical and historical value. Collectors today love the 1995 no-mint mark penny not because it's rare in general, but because it offers opportunity. It invites you to look closer, to pay attention to details, and to discover hidden value where others see none. It's a coin that teaches patience. You might go through hundreds, even thousands of pennies before finding something special. But that moment, when you spot a true double die or a flawless uncirculated piece, makes the search worthwhile. And that's really what coin collecting is about. It's not just about money. It's about history, curiosity, and the thrill of discovery. So the next time you come across a 1995 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Examine the details. Ask yourself what story it might be hiding. Because sometimes the smallest coins carry the biggest surprises. And who knows, the next one you find might not just be a penny at all. It might be the beginning of something far more valuable. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a simple penny, and realizing that this tiny copper coin might be hiding a story far more valuable than its face value. What if one ordinary-looking 1997 Lincoln penny could actually be worth far more than 1 cent? Today, we're uncovering the truth behind the 1997 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin that millions of people overlook every single day. At first glance, the 1997 Lincoln penny looks just like any other coin. It features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. If you flip it over in your hand, nothing immediately stands out. But here's where things get interesting. Some of these pennies were struck without a mint mark, and for many collectors, that small detail raises a big question. Is it rare, or is it just another common coin? To understand this, we need to go back to 1997. That year, the United States Mint produced billions of Lincoln pennies to keep up with everyday circulation. These coins were struck primarily at two major facilities, Philadelphia and Denver. Coins from Denver carry a small D mint mark just below the date, while coins from Philadelphia traditionally had no mint mark at all. So when you see a 1997 penny without a mint mark, it means it was produced in Philadelphia. Now you might be thinking, if that's normal, then why do people talk about the 1997 no mint mark penny as if it's something special? The answer lies in the details. While most of these coins are indeed common, certain variations, errors, and high-grade examples can turn an ordinary penny into something collectors actively search for. Let's take a closer look at the coin itself. The 1997 Lincoln penny is made primarily of zinc with a thin copper plating. This composition had been in use since 1982, when rising copper prices forced the mint to change the metal content. The coin weighs about 2.5 grams and has that familiar copper color, although over time it can darken or develop spots depending on how it's stored. On the front, you see Abraham Lincoln facing to the right, a design that has been used since 1909. Above his head are the words "In God We Trust," with "Liberty" to the left and the year 1997 to the right. Below the date is where you would normally find a mint mark, but in this case there is none. On the reverse side, the Lincoln Memorial stands proudly in the center. If you look very closely, you can even see a tiny representation of Lincoln's statue inside the memorial. Surrounding it are the inscriptions "United States of America," "E Pluribus Unum," and 1 cent. So what makes certain 1997 no-mint mark pennies valuable? The key factors are condition and errors. Most coins that have been in circulation are worn down, scratched, and faded. These are typically worth only their face value. However, coins that have been preserved in near-perfect condition, what collectors call mint state, can be worth significantly more. A 1997 penny with no mint mark that has never been circulated, with sharp details, original shine, and no visible damage, can sell for several dollars. That might not sound like much, but for a 1-cent coin, it's already a big jump. Now, if that same coin is graded at a very high level by a professional grading service, its value can climb even higher, sometimes reaching $20, $30, or even more dollars depending on demand. But the real excitement comes from error coins. Occasionally, something goes wrong during the minting process. These mistakes can create unique variations that collectors love. For example, some 1997 pennies show doubling in the lettering or numbers, where the design appears slightly duplicated. Others might have off-center strikes, where the design is not perfectly aligned. There are even rare cases of coins with unusual surface textures or missing details. These errors are not common, but they do exist. When collectors find a genuine error coin from 1997 with no mint mark, its value can increase dramatically. Some have sold for $50, $100, or even more depending on the severity and uniqueness of the error. Now let's talk about real-world value examples. A typical circulated 1997 no-mint mark penny is worth 1 cent. But an uncirculated version in excellent condition might sell for anywhere between $1 and $10. High-grade examples that receive top scores from grading companies can reach into the $20 to $50 range. And error coins, especially those with clear and visible mistakes, have been known to sell for over $100 in certain cases. This brings us to an important question. How can you tell if you have a valuable one? First, check the condition. Look for a coin that still has its original shine, with no scratches or discoloration. Next, examine the details closely. Pay attention to the lettering, the date, and Lincoln's features. If anything looks unusual, such as doubling or misalignment, you might have an error coin. It's also important to avoid common misconceptions. Some people believe that the absence of a mint mark automatically makes a coin rare. In the case of 1997 pennies, that's not true. Philadelphia produced a large number of these coins without mint marks, so most of them are very common. The value comes from condition and errors, not just the missing mark. When it comes to spotting fakes, the good news is that 1997 pennies are not commonly counterfeited because their base value is low. However, altered coins do exist. Some individuals try to modify coins to make them appear like error pieces. For example, they might damage the surface or alter the date. That's why it's always best to compare your coin with verified examples or have it examined by a professional if you think it's valuable. Here's a fun fact that surprises many people. The Lincoln penny design is one of the longest-running coin designs in United States history. Since its introduction in 1909, it has gone through several reverse design changes, but Lincoln's portrait has remained on the front for over a century. Your 1997 penny is part of that long and fascinating legacy. Another interesting detail is that billions of pennies are still sitting in jars, drawers, and piggy banks across the country. Many people never bother to check them closely. That means there's always a chance, however small, that a valuable coin is hiding in plain sight. Collectors today love coins like the 1997 no-mint mark penny because they are accessible. You don't need to spend a fortune to start collecting. You can literally begin by checking the change in your pocket. It's this sense of possibility, the idea that something ordinary could turn out to be special, that keeps people interested in coin collecting. That there's also a deeper appeal. Coins are small pieces of history. Each one represents a moment in time, a year when it was minted, and a story about the economy, technology, and design of that era. Holding a 1997 penny is like holding a tiny snapshot of the late 1990s, a time before smartphones and digital payments became part of everyday life. As we wrap up, here's something to think about. The next time you come across a handful of pennies, don't just ignore them. Take a closer look. Check the dates, examine the details, and see if anything stands out. Because while most coins will be ordinary, every once in a while, you might find one that tells a much more valuable story. And that's the real magic of coins like the 1997 no-mint mark Lincoln penny. They remind us that even the smallest things can hold hidden potential, waiting for someone curious enough to discover it. What if the next penny you pick up, the one you almost ignore, is quietly worth far more than 1 cent? Not because it looks special, not because it's ancient, but because of a tiny detail most people never even notice. Today, we're uncovering the story of the 2003 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that millions have seen, but very few truly understand at first glance. The 2003 Lincoln penny looks completely ordinary. It has the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front, and on the back, the Lincoln Memorial design that many Americans grew up seeing in their spare change. It's small, copper-colored, and easy to overlook. But this coin carries a story that connects history, production, and the hidden world of coin collecting. The no mint mark part is where things begin to get interesting. When people hear that a coin has no mint mark, they often assume something is missing or rare. But in reality, for many modern pennies, including those from 2003, no mint mark actually means the coin was made at the Philadelphia Mint. For decades, Philadelphia produced coins without adding a mint mark, while other mints like Denver used a D and San Francisco used an S. So, the 2003 no mint mark penny isn't a mistake by default. It's a standard coin from Philadelphia. And yet, within that simplicity lies the potential for hidden value, depending on condition, rarity within certain grades, and possible minting errors. To understand why this coin exists, we need to step back to the year 2003. The United States Mint was continuing its long tradition of producing the Lincoln cent, first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln. By 2003, the design had remained largely unchanged for decades. The obverse still featured Lincoln's profile, originally designed by Victor David Brenner, while the reverse displayed the Lincoln Memorial, introduced in 1959. These pennies were made primarily for circulation, meaning they were intended for everyday use. Billions were produced. In fact, the Philadelphia Mint struck over 3 billion pennies in 2003 alone. That number alone might make you think this coin could never be valuable. But coin collecting isn't just about how many were made. It's about how many survive in exceptional condition, and whether any were produced with unique characteristics. The 2003 Lincoln penny is made from a zinc core with a thin copper plating. This composition has been used since 1982, when the rising cost of copper forced the U.S. Mint to switch materials. While the coin looks like solid copper, it's actually mostly zinc underneath. This makes it lighter and also more vulnerable to certain types of wear and damage. When you look closely at the coin, you'll notice the word Liberty on the left side of Lincoln's portrait, the year 2003 on the right, and the phrase "In God We Trust" above. The absence of a mint mark just below the year confirms it came from Philadelphia. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial stands in the center, with United States of America above and 1 cent below. So where does the value come in? Why would anyone pay more than a cent for something so common? The answer lies in condition and errors. Most 2003 pennies have been heavily circulated. They've passed through countless hands, been dropped, scratched, and worn down over time, but a small number were preserved in near-perfect condition. These are known as uncirculated coins, and when graded at the highest levels, such as MS-67 or higher, they become surprisingly scarce. Collectors are willing to pay a premium for coins that look as if they were just struck yesterday. In top condition, a 2003 no-mint mark penny can sell for several dollars, sometimes even reaching into the tens or hundreds depending on the exact grade and eye appeal. It may not sound like life-changing money, but for a coin that most people ignore, that's a significant jump in value. But the real excitement comes from error coins. During the minting process, mistakes can happen. These mistakes are not supposed to leave the mint, but some slip through. And when they do, they can transform an ordinary penny into something collectors eagerly search for. For the 2003 no-mint mark penny, some known errors include off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned, double dies, where parts of the design appear duplicated, and die cracks, which create raised lines on the surface of the coin. There are also cases of weak strikes, where details appear faint due to insufficient pressure during minting point. One of the most talked about types is the double die error. This happens when the die used to stamp the coin has a slight misalignment during its creation, causing certain letters or numbers to appear doubled. If you find a 2003 penny with clear doubling, especially in words like liberty or in God we trust, it could be worth significantly more than face value. There have been auction listings where error pennies from similar years have sold for anywhere between $50 and several $100s, depending on the visibility of the error and the coin's condition. While not every 2003 penny will fall into this category, the possibility is what keeps collectors searching. Now, you might be wondering how to tell if you have a valuable one. Start by checking the mint mark, or in this case, confirming that there isn't one. Look just below the year on the front of the coin. If there's no letter, it was minted in Philadelphia. Next, examine the coin closely under good lighting. Look for anything unusual. Are the letters sharp and clear, or do they appear doubled? Is the design centered or slightly off? Are there cracks, bumps, or missing details? Condition is just as important. A shiny, clean coin with no visible wear is far more desirable than one that has been heavily used. Avoid cleaning the coin, as this can actually reduce its value. Collectors prefer coins in their original state, even if they show some natural aging. For those who want to go further, professional grading services can evaluate your coin and assign it a grade. This adds credibility and can increase its market value, especially if the coin turns out to be in high-grade condition or has a recognized error. There are also fakes and altered coins to watch out for. Some people try to modify coins to make them look like errors, for example by artificially doubling letters or damaging the surface. Genuine errors usually have a consistent, natural appearance that matches known patterns. If something looks suspicious or too perfect, it's worth getting a second opinion from a reputable dealer or grading service. Here's something surprising. Even though billions of 2003 pennies were made, very few people actually check them closely. That means valuable pieces could still be sitting unnoticed in jars, drawers, or old piggy banks. Unlike rare coins that are locked away in collections, these pennies are still out there, quietly circulating or waiting to be discovered. Another interesting detail is that the Lincoln Memorial design itself includes a tiny hidden feature. If you look very closely at the reverse, you can actually see a small representation of Lincoln's statue inside the memorial. It's a subtle detail that many people never notice, but it reflects the craftsmanship that goes into even the smallest coins. Collectors today are drawn to the 2003 no-mint mark penny not because it's rare in general, but because it represents opportunity. It's a reminder that value isn't always obvious. Sometimes, it's hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone curious enough to look a little closer. There's also a sense of connection. Holding this coin is like holding a small piece of early 2000s America. It passed through everyday transactions, witnessed countless moments, and now, years later, it has become part of a larger story in the world of collecting. For beginners, this coin is often a starting point. It's accessible, easy to find, and teaches the basics of what to look for in valuable coins. For experienced collectors, it's another chance to hunt for high-grade examples or rare errors that others may have missed. And that's really what makes coin collecting so fascinating. It turns ordinary objects into a treasure hunt. It rewards patience, attention to detail, and a willingness to learn. So the next time you come across a penny dated 2003, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Check for that missing mint mark, examine the details, and consider its condition. Because while most of these coins are only worth a cent, a small number carry a story, and possibly a value that goes far beyond their face. And who knows? The coin you almost ignored today might just be the one that sparks your curiosity, starts a collection, or even leads to an unexpected discovery. What if the penny sitting quietly in your pocket right now could be worth far more than 1 cent? maybe even hundreds or thousands of dollars. It sounds unbelievable, but for some collectors, that possibility begins with a single coin from 2007, a Lincoln penny with a small D mint mark that most people overlook every day. The 2007 D mint mark Lincoln penny is part of one of the longest-running coin designs in American history. At first glance, it looks completely ordinary. It's small, copper-colored, and features the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln on the front. But beneath that everyday appearance lies a story of history, craftsmanship, and the hidden world of coin collecting where tiny details can mean big money. To understand this coin, we need to go back to why it was made in the first place. The Lincoln cent was first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln. It was a major moment in U.S. coin history because it was the first time a real person appeared on a circulating American coin. By 2007, this design had already been in circulation for nearly a century, making it one of the most recognizable coins in the United States. The D mint mark on the 2007 penny tells us where it was made. This particular coin was struck at the Denver Mint, one of the main facilities responsible for producing billions of coins each year. In 2007 alone, the Denver Mint produced billions of Lincoln pennies, which is why most people assume these coins are common and not worth much. And in most cases, they are right. But not always. What makes the 2007 D Lincoln penny interesting is not just its history, but the small details that can turn an ordinary coin into something collectors search for. The coin is made primarily of zinc, with a thin copper coating. This composition was introduced in 1982 to reduce production costs, replacing the older solid copper pennies. Even though the metal changed, the iconic design remained. On the front, you'll see Abraham Lincoln's profile, facing right. Above his head is the word Liberty, and in front of him is the year 2007. Just below the year is the small D mint mark. On the back, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was used from 1959 to 2008. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny image of the Lincoln statue inside the memorial building. It's a small detail that many people never notice. So if billions of these coins were made, how could any of them be valuable? The answer lies in condition, rarity within the population, and errors. First, condition plays a huge role. Most 2007 D pennies have been heavily circulated. They've passed through countless hands, pockets, and machines, picking up scratches, wear, and damage along the way. But if you find one in near-perfect condition, what collectors call mint state, it can be worth significantly more than its face value. A coin that looks almost brand new with sharp details and original shine is much harder to find than you might think. Then there are errors, and this is where things get really interesting. During the minting process, mistakes can happen. These mistakes are not supposed to leave the mint, but occasionally they do, and when they reach the public, they become highly collectible. For the 2007 D Lincoln penny, some known errors include double die errors, where the design appears slightly duplicated due to a misalignment during the striking process. There are also off-center strikes, where the coin design is not properly aligned, leaving part of the coin blank. Another type is a die crack, where a small line appears on the coin due to a crack in the minting die. While these errors might sound minor, collectors are willing to pay surprising amounts for them. A standard 2007 D penny might be worth just 1 cent, but an error coin can sell for anywhere from a few dollars to several $100s, depending on how rare and noticeable the error is. There have even been cases where high-grade examples of 2007 D pennies, especially those graded by professional services, have sold for impressive prices. Coins that receive top grades, like MS-67 or higher, are extremely rare because so few coins survive in such perfect condition. In auctions and collector markets, these top-quality coins can reach prices of $50, $100, or more, simply because of their condition. Now, it's important to be realistic. Not every 2007 D penny is valuable. In fact, most are still worth just 1 cent. But the excitement comes from the possibility. The idea that among millions of ordinary coins, a few hidden treasures exist is what keeps collectors searching. If you want to check whether you have a valuable 2007 D penny, there are a few simple things you can do. Start by examining the coin under good lighting. Look for any unusual features, such as doubling in the letters or numbers, or parts of the design that seem off-center. Pay attention to the surface of the coin. Is it smooth and shiny, or is it worn and scratched? You can also compare your coin to images of known error coins online. This can help you spot differences that might not be obvious at first. If you think you've found something unusual, you might consider having the coin evaluated by a professional grading service. These organizations can confirm whether your coin is authentic and assign it a grade, which can greatly affect its value. Another important tip is to be careful of fakes or altered coins. Some people try to create fake errors by modifying regular coins. For example, they might try to add scratches or change the appearance of the mint mark. A genuine error coin will have consistent characteristics that match how coins are actually made at the mint. If something looks suspicious or unnatural, it probably is. One of the most surprising things about the 2007 Lincoln penny is how often it goes unnoticed. Because it's so recent compared to older coins, many people assume it has no collectible value at all. But in the world of coin collecting, age is not the only factor. Rarity, condition, and uniqueness matter just as much, if not more. There are also some fun details about this coin that many people don't realize. For example, the Lincoln Memorial design on the back was about to be replaced just 2 years later, in 2009, with a new series of designs celebrating different stages of Lincoln's life. This makes the 2007 penny one of the last coins to feature the classic memorial design that had been used for decades. Another interesting fact is that the tiny Lincoln statue inside the memorial on the reverse side is actually visible, making it one of the few coins in the world to feature the same person on both sides. It's a small artistic detail, but it adds to the uniqueness of the design. Collectors today love the 2007 Lincoln penny not because it is rare in general, but because it represents a modern treasure hunt. Unlike older coins that are mostly found in collections or sold at auctions, this coin can still be discovered in everyday circulation. That means anyone, anywhere, has a chance to find one. For many collectors, the thrill is not just in the value of the coin, but in the search itself. Checking your change, examining coins closely, and learning about the small details that make each coin unique can turn an ordinary moment into something exciting. It's a hobby that combines history, art, and the possibility of unexpected rewards. And that's what makes the 2007 Lincoln penny so fascinating. It's a reminder that value is not always obvious. Sometimes, it's hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone curious enough to look a little closer. So the next time you come across a penny, don't ignore it. Take a moment to examine it. Look at the year, the mint mark, and the details. Because you never know. That small, ordinary coin in your hand might have a story worth far more than 1 cent.